Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Event Tech Live, your next session. Don't forget, coming up in the speed networking at 12 in just half an hour's time, we've got the exhibition and trade show organisers speed networking session. If you want to connect with people in that area, get signed up for that. But if you're here on the main stage, it must be because you're interested in technology for behaviour change. So our next session is brought to you by Dr. James Morgan from the International Tourism and Hospitality College. Morning, James. How are you? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm lovely. I'm here in sunny Saudi Arabia and it's 30 degrees outside. So I'm glad I'm in the air conditioning anyway for this session. Thank you.
Super. Just double checking with our tech team. We're getting audio through. I'm not getting the feed in my ears, but we are all good. That is fantastic then. James, lovely to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, if you would like to connect with me, that is my LinkedIn QR code. So simply hold your phone up to your machine and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Um, and just to say a few words, I am at the International Tourism and Hospitality College in Riyadh. I'm also the founder of the Event Tech Lab. And today I'm talking to you about technology for behavior change. So, one of the most important things for business events is to facilitate and influence behavior change. So, throughout the presentation, I'll be using some examples on behavior change. And why is it important? Because when we look at having an event, for example, a sales kickoff, and we are arming our sales guys and girls with new product information. We want them to go out there with that information, and there may be some new sales tools as well that we want them to use. So, what we're trying to do at that sales kickoff essentially is to change their behavior so that they incorporate these new ways of selling, the new product information, etc., so that they are successful at that. Now, you might think, well, why are we doing that? Why do we need behavior change? And the main point is that to have a return on investment on your event, you need to facilitate behavior change. And you also need to facilitate behavior change in terms of the way that people do things in the future that's going to make the business more efficient, or to enlighten others to change their behavior to make their businesses more efficient. So scientific conferences, for example, they need to give out information on new processes, new drugs, new research, and they want to disseminate that information to influence behavior change. So, for example, other doctors might adopt new ways of treating people. So behavior change in terms of business events is incredibly important. But let's have a look at the behavior change cycle, or what we call the stages of behavior change. And there you can see there are 5 actions or stages, and I'll go through each one of those for you, because when it comes to the technology side, we are going to use different types of technology to influence this change. So in the first instance, on the green dot, we have pre-contemplation. Now, this is the stage where the person is unaware of, say, an event that they're going to go to that's being organized by me or you, and they don't know that they're going to be invited to this event, and they are just carrying on with their normal daily job or the way they do things, and that is the green stage of change. We then get to the contemplation part of the stages of change. And this is where the person starts to think about behavior change. Now, as an event organizer, this might be where you send out the email, the invitation, etc., the social media post. to say, why don't you come along to my product launch? Because I want to show you this fabulous product that you might use in the future or sell on to other people. And this is where people think, well, actually, I quite like that product and I think I could probably sell it to a lot of people, or I could use that myself. And by using it yourself or selling it on, you are changing your behavior in any case. So the contemplation stage is where they start to anticipate the change of their behavior in terms of taking on that information, that product, that learning. In other words, that they will use in the future, or the product that they may use in the future. So the contemplation is the beginning of the change. We then get the preparation stage of change, and this is where we get closer to the event itself. And this could be the registration process, the emails up until preparing, asking people what they want to eat at the product launch or the conference, or planning to see who they're going to visit at a exhibition or trade show, and start to actually work their way around getting through their head what they're going to be doing either at one of those kinds of events, the product launch, the conference, or the trade show. So that preparation stage, there is also technology we can use for that as well. And I'm going to go through the technology examples a bit later. So that preparation, in other words, let's keep it simple, the registration page or process is a stage of change, because they are now committing to changing their behavior by preparing to go to the event. The next one we have is action, and this speaks for itself. In other words, they are now at the event. They've taken action to actually change their behavior. And this is really important, because what we do have here in the action is we have, let's take, for example, a product launch. We have the touch and feel and the immersive atmosphere of a product launch. It could be a service launch, so there might not be the touch and feel aspects of touching a product, but there could be other information that they're getting at that particular event. Or if they're going to a trade show, for example, they've prepared by booking appointments with particular exhibitors. They're starting to take action in the event itself by going to see those exhibitors of interest to them. And that is the action they're taking. So their behavior is now changed from green of not even knowing that that event was going off to actually attending the event itself. And then there's technologies that go with that action as well, and we'll see some examples in a minute. The last dot on the diagram there is maintenance. Now, it's really important. Once somebody changes their behavior, we want that behavior to keep going. We don't want them just to buy a product once and then leave it. We want them to continue buying that product. So create loyalty, create rebuy of that product. Let's take the example of the sales conference again. So we've taken action, we've been to the sales conference, and we now have the tools to sell our new product or service, and we go out and we sell it for the first week, and then we go, okay, I've sold enough, I'm not going to bother anymore with those new tools. No, that's not how it should be. We need to maintain that behavior change. So the event organizer and their clients need to work out a way of how are we going to maintain that behavior change? How are we going to make sure that those salespeople use those tools and processes over the next year to really, really get some excellent sales figures? Now, at any time, people can relapse in their behavior change. So let's take, for example, I prepared to go to the event, and actually I don't go to the event at all. So that's a relapse in the change of behavior. For example, I go to the event and I go, yeah, this is great. I'm going to use those new sales tools, and I've taken that action, but then, there's no maintenance. As the organizer or the client, we haven't maintained the behavior change, or even the person itself is really not even ignoring the emails and the videos and all the tools that we want to use to maintain behavior change, and they can relapse to not changing their behavior at all. So that obviously is the risk factor in, well, it's to do with human behavior, because not everybody's is going to maintain their behavior change, and there will be relapses. But on the whole, this is a very well researched model and very, very useful for event organizers and their clients to think about, to use, to frame a process. And part of that process, or a major part of that process, especially communicating the contemplation, the preparation, the action stages, particularly through the use of technologies. Now, a lot of these technologies will be highlighted in the EventTech Live education program, and a lot of these technologies will be highlighted in the live days at that amazing show that I can't attend this year, which unfortunately can't be there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to offer you some ideas of how which technologies can be used to assist in these stages of change. So let's go to the action part, or we can even go back to the preparation part of the process. And we look at polls. Now, everybody knows and loves polls, and they are excellent. But the way you actually design polls is really, really important. Asking yes or no questions doesn't really get you very far. You need to, when you're influencing behavior, you need to have a behavioral objective in mind. So this is where I am now, and where do you want me to get to in the future? So let's look at the contemplation stage. So I'm thinking of going to that event. Now I want to use some kind of emotional trigger in order for people to go, yes, I do want to go to that event. And when I get the registration link, I'm going to sign up. So what kind of poll might you design for that? What kind of questions might you ask in that poll? Would you be asking simple yes or no questions? Or would you be asking more multiple choice questions that actually elicit a response? So let's take, for example, an external product launch, and we're at that contemplation stage, and we're going to be launching a new brand of suitcases. And we want all the luggage buyers around the UK or around Europe to come to our product launch and see this new amazing range of luggage, where we can actually have any kind of fascia, sticker, graffiti thing painted onto the luggage that people can take home with them. So, i.e., I've got a luggage company. I want to see this new product because I can personalize it for all the people walking into my shop or coming into my online store. Now, what kind of poll questions am I going to ask around this? And a very simple poll question could be, do you think your customers want to personalize their luggage in one of these three different ways? Have a sticker put on, have graffiti put on, i.e., let's give them a multiple choice of different ways that they might want their customers to personalize their luggage. So it's not a yes or no answer, it's a much more open answer. So using technology to do that, to actually start triggering emotions and giving the ideas at the same time about the product, is going to elicit some kind of behavior change, which means that they're going to be very interested in signing up, which is the next stage of the behavior change cycle. To the next point, we're going to look at some new realities, and how we look at new realities, or use new realities to create behavior change. So just have a quick look at this video, and then we'll comment on it. Oops, sorry. No, I've lost it.
The HoloLens is a device that extends the realities around you.
The biggest problem an architect has is getting from the screen into physical space. HoloLens is going to bridge that gap.
It's just amazing. We're going from design to collaboration to radical collaboration. And it's completely changing the way people actually approach design.
Microsoft HoloLens allows you to collaborate with somebody regardless of distance, like they were there.
Since we can't put our scientists yet physically on Mars, well, what's possible if we can make them virtually present? That's transformational.
We've been teaching human anatomy the same way for 100 years, and it's completely two-dimensional, and the human body isn't.
As soon as you can change somebody's understanding, then they can change the way they see the world.
It's going to push us in ways that we weren't pushing ourselves before. Now we're actually able to bring it to life.
This is going to be a big technology movement going forward. It's going to change everything.
So particularly the HoloLens is an amazing piece of technology because what it does as a teaching aid, and particularly in the action part of the behavior change cycle, is incredibly useful. Now, this is not going to be used for selling luggage because the cost of using HoloLenses and having that at a conference, for example, will be quite high in terms of the return on investment on the type of product that's being sold. But if we're looking at new products like aeroplanes, fire engines, big mechanical things, scientific conferences to do with medicine, engineering, architecture, using the HoloLens idea or other types of augmented or virtual reality is really, really amazing as a learning tool, as a behavioral change tool. And I think it's really important to note that obviously you need the budget for this. It needs to be linked to the kind of product that you're trying to sell or the information that you're trying to put across and the value of the information that you're trying to put across. So, for example, you saw a medical example there and around a heart, now saving lives, and that type of information is incredibly valuable to people. So using tools like the HoloLens or other augmented or reality tools is very, very useful. One thing I love are quizzes, and again, we could be looking at any stage of the behavioral cycle. Particularly, it could be the action bit, or it could even be used at the maintenance cycle to see what people have remembered from the particular conference, from that particular product launch, or by exhibitors that have taken leads at their booth. They could be asking them if they have bought a product or if they are going to buy a product, and they could make it quite a fun thing. They can incentivize it, gamify it. But quizzes do reinforce behavior change because what we do is we use them as reminders, just as we might use a calendar reminder. So quizzes, I think, again, the questions need to be very well designed, can be beneficial to behavior change at any point of that cycle. I wouldn't use it in the contemplation part of the cycle, but I would certainly use it in the action and the maintenance parts of the cycle. Let's have a look at this little video.
The pandemic, Zoom, Teams, Meets, better phones, and lower costs has placed the whole world into a video zone. With more than 50 million meetings online every day and growing, let's focus on what matters. What if you could compress hours of video into a first-class searchable data source that unlocks the content that's most relevant to your needs into a matter of minutes? Using machine learning to identify patterns, voices, gestures, moments, and enhance content value, Clipper analyzes your video content so that you can select and watch what matters most to you. Discover, bookmark, and share the most valuable parts of a video. Connect video and people with topics that matter to them. and provide content creators a helpful feedback loop with viewers. Join the video revolution with Clipper. Let's save 1 billion hours.
So I really like Clipper. It's a clever piece of technology. It uses artificial intelligence, and in our industry, in our sector, we see a lot of artificial intelligence applications these days. For example, one of the sponsors of EventTech Live, Grip, is a networking platform, and they use artificial intelligence. We see it in other event scenarios. We see it in, for example, artificial intelligence in terms of facial recognition with Zenus biometrics. So we are using a lot of artificial intelligence, and here what they've done is quite clever. They can actually sort content out and personalize content from video sources that have been taken from a conference, from a product launch, or other learning materials, and summarize that into short videos. Now, this is incredibly useful during the maintenance part of the behavior change cycle, because what it's doing, it's a bit like the reminding, like the quiz thing, and the maintenance part of the cycle is to keep that behavior change going, to make sure you reinforce behavior change, because it's no good changing behavior, as I said earlier, and not being able to reinforce it so that people continue to buy the product, or they continue to act in a particular kind of way that's going to be an advantage to the organizer and their clients of those events. And something that I really like is nothing to do with technology at all, is the good old fortune cookie. And this, I just thought I'd throw in there just to lighten things up near the end of the presentation, because again, the fortune cookie, I mean, it's thousands of years old. If you've not seen a fortune cookie before, they come from China. And you can actually have particular fortune cookies made that have particular messages within the fortune cookie. So again, it's not a piece of technology. Well, the technology is the making of the fortune cookie and the message inside it, which is placed in the cookie whilst it is being made and then baked, before it's baked, and then using technology again to decorate the cookie. But you don't think of this as technology like the video or the HoloLens or the quiz or the poll. But what's important about it is that the messages, and if those messages are well designed, you have this kind of sensory reaction to the fortune cookie itself. So if you think of engaging the 5 senses to make a moment more immersive, you've got the taste of the cookie, you've got the smell of the cookie, it looks good, you can hear it breaking, it's engaging the senses, and then you read the message. And the message could quite easily be something around behavior change or to reinforce behavior change in the maintenance cycle. So sending cookies after the event to somebody, or actually having them at the end of lunch with coffee, or even in the preparation stage might be fun too, to prepare people for the particular event that you're organizing. And then the last thing is, again, to do with our mobile phones. And a very, very simple thing are reminders. And we use them all the time, but often they are overlooked and badly designed. And we can actually up our game in terms of reminders, whether it's phone reminders, alarms. So you can use it in the contemplation stage, the preparation stage. You can use it again in the action stage and the maintenance stage of the cycle. A very simple piece of technology that is going to help on each stage of the behavioral cycle. And that's it from me, actually. A quick whiz through, and I hope you enjoyed that. And I think that at least if you took a photograph of that first slide with the cycle of behavior change, or the behavior change graph, I'm just going to shoot back to that. We might want to just get a photo of that up on your screen or do a screenshot to remind yourself. So when you are planning those particular moments in the event process, pre, during, and post, this might be a very, very useful tool to actually get you to think in a parallel way of how you're going to change behavior, and getting people into your event, having a good time at your event, learning something, and then maintaining that behavior change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, James. Really, really interesting stuff there, actually. I'm glad you actually went back to the curve there. I just wanted to ask, do you think that curve still applies to virtual events as opposed to live events, just on the basis that I feel like in between preparation and action, we've heard this morning in sort of previous topics that a lot of people are signing up for virtual and digital events, especially if they're free, and then they're not actually attending. I know you sort of mentioned that relapse, but do you think maybe that we need a sort of extra maintenance step in the middle there between the next stage of actually the action of going forward, or what's your sort of thoughts on that?
I think the important thing is the communication and the FOMO factor of what are you going to miss by not being there, and quite often the communications in that grey area that you're talking about are not well planned. So the preparation part, the registration, and then that part between the preparation and the action and actually getting onto your computer, there is that risk of relapse. Say your boss calls you to a meeting urgently and you can't go. Well, sometimes this cannot be helped, and I mentioned that. But I think in terms of virtual events, there's an understanding that most of these things are recorded. So whilst you might see at 200 sign-ups at that virtual event, what you will actually see is 50 people at the event, but you might get 200 views of the content afterwards. So, there's the plus and minuses of it.
No, absolutely. Totally take that on board. And I think that might be very useful, like you say, to work on those communications from an event planner perspective or an event organizer. I think that's a really good point. And thank you very much. A lot of love in the chat for your session, James. A lot of people saying how much they've loved using Clipper as well as a tool. It sort of revolutionized what they do. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. So thank you very much to James. Really appreciated that session. And I say a lot of love in the chat there. So that has gone down really well. So thank you very much to you.
Thank you.
Fantastic stuff there. I say if you want to get in touch with James, learn a little bit more about what he does or anything he's touched on in that session, you can connect with James on the event platform today. Just a quick reminder, at 12 o'clock we have got a speed networking session all about exhibition and trade show organisers. So if you are in the exhibition and trade show space and you want to do a bit of networking, expand your network, or maybe you're just looking to get into that sector, that is starting in 2 minutes. So head over there now, make sure you get your seat. Coming up, though, very shortly at 12:15, we have isolated trade shows, or from isolated trade shows to 365 event strategies and communities. And that is brought to you by Event Maker. So stick around. We'll be back on the main stage at 12:15. But for now, though, we've got a short tech demo coming your way from Swapcard.